Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, along with Richard Fowler, Eric Bowling, Katie Pavlich, and Tom Shalhoub. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. The Obama administration retaliates against Russia after determining the country interfered with our election. President Obama announced a series of actions today and says the response won't stop there. More now from Fox's Rich Edson at the State Department. Rich?
Good afternoon, Kimberly. In a widespread response from the Obama administration, especially on the sanctions front, they have sanctioned the top Russian intelligence services, the GRU and the FSB, along with top Russian officials, individuals, and companies. On top of that, the U.S. is kicking out 35 Russian diplomats based in the United States. In a statement, the State Department says, quote, the department took these actions as part of a comprehensive response to Russia's interference in the U.S. election and to a pattern of harassment of our diplomats overseas. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham in a statement say, quote, the retaliatory measures announced by the Obama administration today are long overdue, but ultimately they are a small price for Russia to pay for its brazen attack on American democracy. The two senators say they will also push increased Russian sanctions in next year's Senate sessions. Also, the Obama administration says it is closing down 2 Russian pieces of property that the administration charges the Russians used for intelligence gathering. Russian officials say they will retaliate. Kimberly, back to you.
All right, thanks, Rich. Now, we haven't heard yet today from President-elect Trump, but yesterday he said this about the hacking controversy.
I think we ought to get on with our lives. I think that computers have complicated lives very greatly. The whole age of computer has made it where nobody knows exactly what's going on. We have speed, we have a lot of other things, but I'm not sure you have the kind of security that you need. But I have not spoken with the senators, and I certainly will be over a period of time.
All right, so that response yesterday from President-elect Donald Trump, Bowling, no word yet from the president-to-be, but definitely an international situation.
They're telling me Vladimir Putin is weighing in right now, and he's saying, quote, yeah. That's all you got? No, honestly, look, so they're expelling 35 Russian diplomat spies, get them out of here, get them out of here, get them out of here. And then the 2, we'll call them cells, that, one in Maryland, one in, I believe, in the West Coast, they're going to close those down as well. They're spying machines. Well, you should have done that a long time ago. But as far as sanctions, these are pretty toothless sanctions. There's no economic sanctions. There's no oil embargo sanctions. There's nothing like that. What President Obama has done, though, he's effectively painted Donald Trump in the corner, President Donald Trump in the corner, because Trump has, yesterday you heard that comment saying, hey, let's move on with our lives, meaning let's go forward, take the step forward and increase the relationship or embrace the relationship with Russia. What President Obama has now done is said, listen, Donald Trump, if you want to remove these sanctions, you're basically going against our FBI, CIA, DNI, and eliminating their opinion from what President Obama did. And I think that's a very difficult thing. He's going to have to tightrope probably with the help of the Russians. But as far as sanctions go, there was nothing there. There's no there there.
Now, Katie, what about this? The timing of it, with just, less than 3 weeks till there is a new administration really putting us in a corner here with Russia and saying, okay, these operatives are out. I mean, President Obama knew about this to begin with.
Right.
Why didn't he do something then?
Look, I think that President Obama's move to at least look like we're doing something about Russian interference is important, and I think we should take a step back and take politics out of this. I don't think that Democrats or Republicans should be cheering about benefiting or being hurt by what the Russians may have done. But that being said, I agree with Eric. This seems like a very weak response by President Obama, which means 2 things. A, it's deeply political, which is very obvious. And the second thing is that President Obama has to walk a very tight rope here, because if we respond with a full-on cyber attack, the Russians will respond to us, which could put us into a full-blown cyber war. And based on our infrastructure and what the cyber analysts have been saying over the past 10 years, the United States isn't ready for that. We don't have the infrastructure to protect against something like that. And so based on the timing, yes, it's political, but based on the long-term prospect of this, Russian interference in our national security and foreign policy, no matter what it is, whether it's an election or whether it's something else, we should all be condemning that, which
shouldn't be tolerated.
Right, shouldn't be tolerated, regardless of who it benefits.
North from China, North from Korea,
North from
anyone else.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think about the president's move?
Well, I think that the president was in a really tough situation. If he had acted before the election, folks like Eric would have been like, oh, he's trying to put his hands on the scale of the election, rah, 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 rah. So what the president says is, we waited to get the...
Rah, rah, like that?
Yeah, you say just like that, Eric. Right? The president's waited to get the information. He waited for the election to be over. He responded. Now, also, we don't know what the president did that is classified. So, people in Russia could be without power right now. We just don't know.
Right, probably.
We just don't know that way.
And Putin would never tell us.
All right, what about this response, Tom? What do you make of it?
Can we go back to the Cold War and do things in secret? What is this? We're announcing everything. Look, we announced what we're doing.
We didn't announce all of it.
Well, yeah, and he said, there might be some more. But we also announced that we could do more, but we don't want to because we can't. They said we can't deal with what would happen if we engaged in a, full-on cyber war with them.
Right.
It's like, if this were wrestling, they'd be like, I'm going to hit you back, but I'm going to hit you not as hard as you hit me. I mean, that doesn't work.
Football stage.
I'm coming from over here.
Yeah.
Can I say?
I want to talk about Putin's reaction.
Here's part of the problem. What we have here is that we're looking at, and Katie and I and a lot of conservatives are saying, well, that's not really. There's not many teeth to those sanctions.
Right.
Where are the real sanctions? And maybe because there's not enough evidence. We're still waiting to see the evidence. I heard 17 agencies said there's
what
evidence.
More evidence do you
How
want?
about something?
They did it today.
There was a 17-page report by the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security that said that Russia engaged in our elections. John McCain and Lindsey Graham are on a two-man
suggested
show
that
in Europe
Russia did, but they didn't say
they
how they engaged, though.
Oh, Lord.
We need to know that.
Look,
That's relevant.
we also need to reiterate that when we say that Russia was influential in the election, it would have no bearing on the outcome.
Well, that's fine.
Donald Trump would have won regardless of the interference here. So they make this statement that there was all this interference, and it implies that they were involved in hacking voting machines. That is absolutely not true.
There's no evidence of that whatsoever.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's important to remind people that regardless of the interference here, which we should take seriously moving forward, and Donald Trump should take seriously as a cyber warfare situation, this would have had no change in the election, and therefore people like Barack Obama should put his ego aside and realize that they lost.
So now, at one point on this, I agree with Katie. I think that the reason why Democrats lost is because we didn't have a conversation with working class Americans. I agree there, right? And I don't think the email
or a good candidate.
Yeah, that's fair.
The emails did or did not play into it, I don't really know, right? But I think what has to be said is the fact that they did engage. If it happened to the RNC and their emails were hacked, I think it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Republican, Democrat, Nazi party, everybody should have the fairness. They should have free and fair election. Yeah, the DNC emails were hacked.
Or were they leaked?
And the Podesta emails were hacked. They were hacked, and then we
don't know that. Again, I'll say it again.
And he leaked them.
Show the proof, show the evidence that they were actually hacked, not for an insider.
I don't know how much more evidence
I understand Russians giving it to WikiLeaks and having them leaked that way, but the question is, how were they hacked? And frankly, honestly, the bigger issue is China hacking into everything we're doing, including all our business
on a daily basis,
intellectual property.
I agree, and here's the thing. I think that the interesting problem for Donald Trump going into this is because for him to counterbalance China, he's going to need Russia to help him. So the more the president acts, I think the Trump administration and their foreign policy is going to be painted into a little bit of a box, and they're going to have to find new ways to counterbalance China if they're also fighting Putin at the same time. I give you that.
Why are we using the phrase interfering with the election? You used it in your read, Kimberly. We're using it on every news show. Why don't we stop using that phrase? Why don't we say what they did? They hacked into the DNC computers.
Right.
It's a judgment call saying they interfered with the election, and yet it is it's part of the national conversation now. Obama says it, and we repeat it. Why do we repeat it, Kimberly?
Because the Russians want you to repeat it, Tom.
I don't know, Tom. Probably a bad idea to call me out on the show.
Hillary Clinton needs a scapegoat. She needs for people to realize that or think that there's a reason she lost, other than, as Kimberly aptly points out, she was a terrible candidate. It's either the voting booths, it's the Russians, it's the alt-right, then it was the Russians again, maybe it was a voting booth. Bottom line is she lost.
But there's still something to be said that you have a foreign entity hacking emails of a major political party in the United States of America. That is problematic for our
show me the proof that they were hacked and not leaked.
Well, I think that.
But we don't know for sure is what he's saying, because okay, well you do. You had Julian Assange, who was interviewed by Sean Hannity, who said in fact it was provided, given to them that they did not hack anybody. So that's a leak, and that could be from even your own camp.
But the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI in a 17-page report, I read most of it, right? There's a lot of coding in there that I didn't understand. I'm sorry, not a coder. But it talks about the fact that the Russians received this information and then they gave the Julian Assange.
That's true. No one questions that.
Exactly.
But
so when Putin gets access to a party's emails and says, I'm going to leak this because I want to interfere in or try to put my finger on the scale of our elections, that's problematic, Eric.
You still haven't proven that they actually were hacked and not leaked. And the other part that says those 17 agencies ended that report with, hey, trust us.
Okay, so we agree on the following. One, this looks like impotent rage. That's what I call it. When you go U-35, Das Boot, they get kicked out. Not very effective sanctions. Really not going to upset, offend, or keep Vladimir Putin up at night. Doing it in the ninth inning, Eric, instead of when he said he found out about it, President Obama, which was more like the first inning. He could have done something about it then if he was really concerned about any kind of interference with the U.S. election. Maybe they didn't want to bring it up because they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and now it's spoiled apples, grapes, oranges. Fruit of that sort. All right.
The whole fruit store spoiled.
Exactly. The whole fruit store spoiled. Coming up, a top lawmaker in John Kerry's own party is slamming the Secretary of State for going after Israel and forgetting the history in the Middle East. What impact will this have on the United States? We'll talk about that with our guest, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, next.